Guys, welcome to the place to be. Welcome to my home, the Fit Life Strength Out of Struggle studio. Today's an important one because this gentleman and I go way back before anyone was known. I remember being a model, and he was working with a designer called Duval. I remember you were behind the computer there. I think Duval was designing my album KC, the group's clothing, and I met you for the first time there. You behind the computer there. Please welcome. Now, since then, he's gone on to be a writer, author, poet, producer of media, as TV in front of, behind, blogger. We're talking Destiny magazine, Black, and etc. and etc. And a good, amazing father, as well as he likes bikes like I do. And so I guess with the two of us, Buffalo Soldiers, live at the place, please welcome Kojo Baffoe, international, global friend, gentleman, and scholar. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, brother.
Time to give you your flowers. I see you've been doing your work, bro. I mean, see you've been doing your podcast, and it's been so nice to see. Because, of course, we both grew up in the media, and it's so interesting to see that we both, like, without even knowing it, we both on a similar journey.
Yeah.
But it's always been amazing every time I catch up with you because there's always something interesting that you're up to. Your mind has always been like a deep well, not like the other guys in the hood. There's a lot of guys in the hood, but we all have different things that inspire us. But you were always one of the deeper ones. You wanted to go deeper. You were questioning life. How can we make Africa better? Us as men be better men. So we always had that type of connection. I want to go straight to where it all began because you got quite a diverse background.
Yeah.
So let's talk about where you were born, mom and dad, and that beginning journey of your life.
I mean, I think it's all of that has made me, I guess, curious about life.
Yeah.
So my mother was German. My father was Ghanaian. I was born in Germany. We lived in Uganda when I was a baby, and then my mother passed away, so we moved with my father to Lesotho.
How old were you when that
I
happened?
was about 14 months.
What?
So about just over a year. Died in a car accident.
That's crazy.
I was in the accident. I survived and my nanny survived. My mother, my mother's mother, my grandmother, and an uncle of mine, a cousin of my father's,
Yes.
the three of them died.
Sure, man.
So two of us survived, three died.
And so you came in straight out of struggle, straight away.
So, yeah, and then ended up in Lesotho. My father was a lecturer for many years. So he was lecturing actually in Uganda at Kampala during Idi Amin's time. So
That's what I wanted to ask
he
you.
used to have stories about Idi Amin
Bro.
walking into the back of the lecture hall while you're in the middle of lecturing. But I was a baby then. So
I mean, the question, I don't want you to just rush over what happened at that young age. Do you have any memories?
zero. It's pictures.
So only when you see pictures of your mom, that's when you brought back to that.
So my relationship with my mother most of my life was in photo albums.
Yeah. Like
Also,
my dad, same thing.
Also, my father struggled to talk about my mother. So he never, sometimes you'll get, when you were this, or that happened, and your mother did this, or your father did that.
Yeah.
He struggled with it for a long time. So he very rarely actually even talked about my mother. So my relationship with my mother was, it was just in photographs. And then interesting enough, at about 30, because I was, trying out all these different things, Reiki, body alignment, tarot. And during a body alignment session, my mother kind of appeared.
Wow.
And so I always say it's weird that I started building a relationship with my mother when I was 30.
That's crazy.
Like I have conversations with her. And also realizing how much anger I carried.
Yeah.
So you never realize how you internalize certain emotions as a child. So, she didn't choose to be in a car accident, right?
Yeah.
She didn't choose to transition. She didn't choose not to be there physically. But what I found at 30 years old, as I was going through my process of trying to figure myself out, I discovered that I harbored a lot of anger towards it.
You
So
felt abandoned.
yeah,
You know?
so literally from 30, it was only from 30 years old that I actually started working on it.
Well, at least you were able to deal with it at a younger age than me, because I had the same thing with my dad. He was taken away because I was 5 years old, but everything changed, bro. There's memories of. I have two memories that I cling on to, like one of him coming home and I'm hearing him at the gate and I'm having a nap, so I'm pretending to sleep, and I want him to come wake me up, and he'll come in and be like, "Hello, my boy," and every day, bro. That's the only thing I hang on to it. There's a couple of other memories, but beyond that, my mom couldn't talk about it. She was 30. That's young, bro. And so from that moment onwards, there was this hurt, and then our lives were changed. Now we moved into another home. Financially, you're on welfare. There's different things that are happening. But it was just hard for her to talk about it, so I can relate to that. So a lot of bitterness was carried. I'm only now, in the past few years, have I made peace with it, because I chose to stop and face the shadows. You know, what made you turn that corner and be like, okay, I need to make peace with this. There's something not right.
I mean, I've spent the kind of last 20 years trying to be better.
Yeah.
In terms of, and to be better in terms of kind of my perception or my definition as opposed to somebody else's definition, right? So
Conscious of the choice.
I've been very deliberate about reflecting on certain things and trying to change certain things.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like I get it right. Sometimes it feels like I don't. But I've kind of been on that journey.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was weird. I was talking to somebody the other day, a friend of mine, and the topic of inner child workshops came up.
Yeah.
And I did inner child workshops. It was like a 10-month program where you went once a month.
Yeah.
On a Sunday. And I was doing this, probably 2002? It's like the year I got married. 2002, 2003. And I mean, we're talking about, we're even talking about something random. And I was like, yeah, I did these things, like where you go in every month and it's your relationship with your parents.
Well, the younger you...
You deal with different, like every time you go, it's a different age range and what influences you and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and went, dude, you like been doing this thing forever, right? And I was like, actually, then I realized that I don't know what it is, but there's something that, like, I'll go try stuff out, just to kind of figure out how to find a greater balance. Yeah. And maybe it's because having been unbalanced in a way, or not unbalanced in terms of kind of erratic outwardly,
where do I belong?
But just in terms of just trying to find my space.
Yes.
I have always been drawn to certain things and certain processes. And I've kind of just automatically always done that. Yeah. And part of it is, I mean, I remember being 18 years old and going to university in Durban. Yes. And having never spent much time in South Africa.
Yeah.
And pitching up at varsity after a year in Germany as a 19-year-old.
So people are looking at you. So let's pause it there. People are seeing you and they just think you're another mixed kid colored from the hood.
Yeah.
That speaks the same way, that speaks Afrikaans. So they come to us straight away.
And I didn't, I mean, at that age, at that stage in my life, I didn't even know what colored was. Right? I'd never heard the term. I'd never engaged with the term.
Because overseas, you either this or that.
And in Lesotho, my high school we had like up to 50 different nationalities. I was my father's son. Like I had context within this, the society I grew up in, because my father was a lecturer and then went into business. So he was known and I was known as his son. Yes. And I have younger siblings and I was so-and-so's older brother, right? Those are the things that defined me.
Yeah.
And then I get to Durban, and after high school, I spent a year in Germany.
Yeah.
Then I came back, and I worked at the family business for 6-7 months. And then I go to Durban, and I stay in res.
That must have been
All
interesting.
right. And I speak Sesotho. Sesotho is my second language.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Did you speak German, by the way?
at that stage, I did. My German is really bad now.
Okay.
But then being told, like, walking into a place and people already defining me by how they look at me,
Straight away.
which I'd never had before.
Yeah.
And then hearing, oh, no, you're colored. And I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, and, 18, 19 years old, that's when you're trying to figure out who you are as an individual.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out myself in relation to, like, coming into a space where all of a sudden race is part of the conversation. Because in my mind, I'd always been black. I'm the white sheep of my family. I was my mother's only child.
Exactly.
So everybody else is dark.
You didn't have context with your mom, so you didn't
Yeah.
know, you know?
But I mean, I have German family and everything else. But, I was just black because, like, my family,
Yes.
the country I live in. And at that age, I'm going, if I say I'm black, what does that mean what am I saying about my German heritage?
Exactly.
And I'm as proud of that as I am of my Ghanaian heritage,
Yes.
right? So I'm trying to figure all of this stuff out. And, I'm 18, 19 years old. You're trying to figure all this stuff out. And then people going, oh, you're colored.
Yeah, straight up.
And I'm like, okay, first of all, no. But what is that?
Yes.
And I had hang-ups around being called colored for years,
Yeah.
including when I moved here.
Yeah.
And so it was, so I think it's all of those things. And my relationship with my father was such that we used to talk about stuff.
Yes.
Politics, social stuff. I mean, he lectured economics, political science, sociology, African studies. So I had that at home.
Yeah.
And I was a sounding board for a very long time. And I started working for him
Okay.
in his management consulting company from a young age. So at 15, I was doing his typing and I was a research assistant. So we'd have conversations. So I guess that kind of forced me to be reflective.
That all makes sense now. So, and just keep on track where you are, because like some of us grow up without fathers. A lot of people didn't grow up with that sounding board or a place that they were able to communicate in the right way. There's so many levels, but that's so interesting. It makes a lot of sense now as to the type of person that you turned out to be. Carry on.
I mean, to add to that is, unfortunately, in the society that we live in, and the spaces that we engage with, most people come from single-parent homes with a mother.
Exactly.
I come from a single-parent home
father.
with a father.
Yeah.
So my father had remarried
Yeah.
and then got divorced, but my father was my only parent, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things in terms of thinking about this and reflecting, is like, there are certain things where you can see the difference in perspective.
Yes.
Because, like, we may both come from single parent homes.
But mine was a mom and yours was a
And
dad.
so yours was, influenced by your mother and that energy.
Yes.
Whereas mine was influenced by my
More
father and
masculine.
that energy. And my father, when we would, like, if I felt aggrieved about something, right? It'd be like, leave emotion out of it. You must be logical and rational.
So instead
right?
of hugs and, okay, what's
Yeah.
wrong, my baby? Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about this.
So it also affected my relationship with women. It
Yes.
affected how I show up in the world. It affected how I interact with people. And sometimes it's interesting kind of watching it because how you interpret it. And, I mean, a random thing. I remember being asked to write for a magazine, one of the women's magazines, years ago, and they wanted me to write something like a column on Mother's Day.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think I'm the best person to do that.
Sure.
Because I didn't have my mother. So all I have is anger and disdain
Is that
when I
gap-
see how people treat their mothers. I'm like, do you know how fortunate you are to have that.
And I'm
right?
like this. You're not fortunate that you got a father, and you're not talking to him.
Yeah.
Like tomorrow he could be gone. He could be out. So similar thing. I'm like, so with a lot of friends that were having father issues, I'd always be the one be like, maybe this, maybe that. But you try and just get a place where you can at least talk about it, because you don't know what it is to not have one, and always be wondering what would it have been like.
And so it's a weird thing, because I'm surrounded primarily by people who come from, well, not everybody, but
Most of the community, bro.
if you come from a single parent home, then it's usually the mother, right? And so dealing with people, daddy issues, and I don't have daddy issues, right? And just trying to relate and trying to find that common ground.
It's crazy how role modeling plays a part. Because I talk about the communities we came from, and like you said, there's a lot of single parents and mums. Like even my sisters and people that I know, they may have kids, but sometimes kids with different men. And the guys always have kids, and they duck. My whole mission was I always wanted kids from when I was small. And my whole thing was like, no matter what had happened, once I had children, I was not going to leave, no matter what the relationship was like, because I didn't want to be that typecast. Oh, hey, another. So even today, people ask me, so how many kids you got? 7, whatever. Oh, so how the baby mamas get on? I'm like, no, there's only one. I've actually been the one to adopt, to take care of what, because I did not want to be like. You know what I'm saying? It's amazing how things affect us.
Whereas I always wanted kids, and my whole thing was a father can raise his children.
Yes.
Because I watched
Because you got shown.
I got my father, because we have 5 kids.
Yeah.
So my father was married before he married my mother. So
Yeah.
I have an older sister.
Okay.
And then my mother, they got divorced, and then he married my mother. And then my mother died, and then he remarried. So I have 2 younger brothers.
And how was your relationship with
We were all raised together.
Your stepmom, after your mom passed away? How was that relationship?
I mean, she was my mother for the period that they were married. And I wrote a book, and one of the things I talk about is what was strange to deal with was when they divorced.
And then
It was like I got divorced.
Yeah, bro.
And but at the same time, so my father raised all of his children. So we were raised as a unit, right? And
So
I'm
the kids-
elder.
the
I'm
kids
elder
stay
son.
together after the divorces.
Everybody stayed with my father. So
Wow.
so my older sister was in Ghana. My mother's from Ghana.
Yeah.
When we moved to Lesotho, my older sister moved to come live with us.
Wow.
And then the last 3, it isn't in Lesotho. So
Yes.
so I was not raised with step this or step that,
Yeah.
or half this or half that.
Yeah.
Like if you ask them, and if you go to, like, my 2 brothers are in Lesotho now, my older sister's in the Vaal, and my younger sister's in the UK.
Yeah. One
I'm
family.
their brother.
Yeah.
Despite, when there's family dispute, it's the half thing or
Yeah.
different mothers thing does not come into play.
Yeah.
Because we were raised, my father raised all of us. So because of that, I was like, I want kids, and there's no reason why a man cannot raise kids.
Yeah. It's really cool, man. It's really interesting, because part of this program, Strength Out of Struggle, is, as you know, about facing our demons, our shadows, and healing. We as young men, as men, haven't had a place to be vulnerable, to talk about our hurts, our pains, and to leave a positive legacy for
Sure.
those that are to come. It's always been like, well, from the colored community, you got to be bold. You got to beat people up. You got to stand up for yourself. You can't be vulnerable, otherwise you'll be, picked on or whatever. But now, and I guess maybe that's because I was raised by women, my mom and my grandmother was also my godmother. How's that? So every day I had to go to church with her. I'd be like, so it's always on my mind how to treat a woman, whatever. And I feel guilty about the smallest thing. But now I feel like there's a second chance, and especially with this podcast, and this is an opportunity for us to have open conversations and work things out together, be vulnerable, and let people know that they're not alone out there. And there's options, there's other ways out.
Yeah.
You can be whoever you want to be. So that was a quick little detour.
So just on that, so my father had this thing. He gave me a book when I went to varsity, and he gave all of us copies of this book. It's called Choices.
Okay.
Right. So my father's thing was always, you always have a choice.
Yeah.
Not making a choice is
It's
a
also a
choice.
choice. Yes,
it's
exactly.
a choice in itself.
Yeah.
And every choice has a consequence. You must always be willing to bear the consequence of your choices.
Yeah.
If you're deliberate about it,
Yeah.
then your life, the consequence will be easier to make sense of, right?
Yeah.
If you don't make choices, you still have to deal with the consequence.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, like you're saying, like there are other ways. And I think an interaction like this, or a conversation like this, is important because, first of all, what's prominent comes from a very Western male Caucasian outlook.
Yeah.
And there's so many people out in the world who everybody's looking at, paying attention to, whose messaging is downright destructive.
That's right.
Particularly for
Very ego-based.
yeah, but particularly for young men coming up, right? And it's important to have the conversations where we can be honest about the things that we're grappling with.
Yeah, yeah. And look, it took a long time to get to this point. I mean, and I'm sure you feel the same way. Because, number one, you've got to be alone for a minute to be able to have those meditations, those thoughts come up, those conversations with self, where you're calling yourself out. And you can only truly love yourself when you accept yourself, shadows and all. And you can only be better than yourself from yesterday or today. This whole journey I've been on has also been based on trying to promote wellness in people's lives. So I want to go back to when you were young. Was wellness, fitness, that type of stuff in part of your life?
I was an athlete.
Yeah. So you see.
So-
And why I ask is because 99.9% of anybody that's out there living some form of life where there's peace or understanding or success, that element is there. Wellness, of course, there's 7 dimensions, but I'm saying taking care of the self. So I want to know what you did when you were young, because people are going to watch this and I want them to connect, because it's natural medicine.
Yeah, so I was an athlete. Like,
took on
I played most sports. I think the American term is I was a jock through school. I was all right in class.
Yeah.
My teachers always said I could do better.
Yes.
And I probably could have if I put in the work. But I played most sports.
What are your main sports that you...
So at school we did everything, right? So depending on season, I played football, I played volleyball, I played basketball, softball. At some stage we even had touch rugby.
Yeah.
I went to what was a British affiliated school in Lesotho.
Yes.
And then we did athletics during season.
Was Mandla... Did Mandla grow up there or yeah? Mandela. Because...
I am not sure.
And Sam Fororo, do you remember him from... there's so many guys from Lesotho. But anyway...
So Sam, I didn't... Sam I met when I met you, around that time.
Okay.
I'm not sure about Mandla. Also, it's also like kind of our ages. So I'm 53 now. So there are a lot of people that you'll find that especially like my brother after me there's 5 years between us.
Yes.
So there's a lot of, even Joburg today, there's a lot of guys and women that grew up with my younger siblings.
Okay.
And then my older sister's 11 years older than I am.
Okay.
So I kind of had my own lane.
Yes.
But so I did every field event, I did every sport. But my thing was from about 14, 15, 100 meters. I was a sprinter.
Okay.
And so I started training myself while I was still in the
So you were doing the hit stuff back then, because my whole training philosophy is based on that. how the sprinters train. Even when I started training, I was Michael Jackson back in the day. I used to look at like who did I want to be like, and I used to see the 100-meter sprints, Daley Thompson, the way they were built, that explosiveness.
So you talk about Daley Thompson. When I was about 16, my PE teacher had a videotape. So those days, I think
VHS,
I think it was even beta, because we had a beta before
Beta
the VHS.
You guys don't even know, bro.
Because VHS came. I mean, VHS started in the porn industry, right?
Yeah.
But,
so Betamax.
yeah. But so she had a video of Daley Thompson doing training routines.
What?
And she borrowed me this thing because Daley Thompson was the decathlete, right? So he did everything.
Bro.
So I used to have this at home and I used to train myself. Like guys who used to joke.
You know how lucky you were to get footage of him training?
Yeah.
We'd only see him in that 100-meter. I actually think to myself, I wonder what he does. And I'd be like, there's no internet. So I'd be like going to the library, finding out what these guys do.
Yeah, so because also, I mean, so in Lesotho it's called Machabeng High School. I think they changed it to college now. So there's Machabeng High School in Lesotho. In Eswatini there's Waterford Kamhlaba.
Yeah.
And in Botswana there's Marapula.
Yeah.
So we were sister schools all affiliated to the international, to the British Cambridge.
Yes.
So we even
did
did
Cambridge as well.
We even did sports trips to the three schools.
Yes,
We used to visit them. But yeah, I used to train myself. By about 16, 17, there were some soldiers in Lesotho who, I don't know, they trained. This is what they did at the stadium. So during school holidays, I would go and train with them every day. At some stage, I even had a coach from the sports department, and one of my closest friends, we're still very close today. His father is probably Lesotho's most famous athlete because he ran in the Olympics. I think he did 200 meters and 100. Ran in Olympics in Moscow. A man called Mutsapi Morosi.
Yeah, gotta give him his flowers. People must know.
And I mean, he was called Champ. And he was kind of like one of my idols. So I was looking to qualify for the Olympics for Lesotho. So when I finished high school, I went to Germany for a year as a Rotary exchange student. My second day, I joined a club.
Yeah.
So I was training right through that. And I carried a German passport as well at that time. So I could actually, if I'd stayed there, I could have, tried out for, I was supposed to go to the German nationals with my relay team. And then when I came back, I went to varsity in Durban and I was training for the 96 Atlanta Olympics. I was trying to qualify for Lesotho for that. And then I hurt my leg. So I've had like multiple ops.
So that changed the direction of everything.
Yeah, so that changed. But I mean, I was advised because my father's kind of like, yeah, well, you can do this.
But education first.
But you must still go to school.
Yeah.
So what that... I mean,
what was the injury? What exactly happened there?
I burst a blood vessel, and the muscle became gangrenous, and they had to cut out the muscle.
Whoa!
And also, by the time I got to a doctor who could figure out what it was, it was too late. So they'd even said if it was another day,
you would have lost more.
They would have amputated just below the knee.
And we always get to this point in the conversation when I'm interviewing people because, first of all, I only interview people that I know have had some form of fitness. There's a connection. And then this part of the story where we question, do you think this is part of destiny? Did we create this ourselves? Was this always meant to be? Because look where you are now. You always were meant to be this. How do you look at when it comes to faith and how things turned out?
So I'm not I've never followed religion. I wouldn't even say I was atheist because atheist felt like a commitment in itself.
Yeah.
As I've grown older, I guess I've connected to kind of spirituality more. I
And that's where and don't
Yeah,
forget
yeah.
where you are. This is where I'm trying to unpack things, is because a lot of people, they'll say, okay, I was religious, I'm not religious, um, but it's also confusion about what we were taught about that God, that white guy above the clouds with the beard and everything else. And then as you awaken, you realize that possibly everything is part of that oneness. So your God could be either that symbol you see, or everything, the universes, the galaxies,
Mm.
everything, the oneness. So it's all, in an enlightened level, everything is the same. We all see it the same. And interesting to talk about religion, because you can be religion, like going to school, or you can be religious about your spirituality.
Mm.
And I'm really, really curious, and I'm enjoying the true meaning of certain words, because when you put things together and really unpack them and understand what they mean, it changes everything.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah.
So
I
you
mean,
were saying,
I wasn't raised in a household where there was a particular definition, or there was a particular faith that you needed to follow.
so no, was there any praying or?
No. So, and maybe it's because it was a masculine-led household, right?
Dad was like, deal with it.
But my father, from what I understand, my father was actually a preacher in his early 20s. And at some stage lost his faith when he moved to Europe. So how we were raised was you did whatever worked for you. Like there was no, on Sunday mornings you must go to church, and my older sister's Christian, like, and proper Christian, right?
Yeah.
My younger siblings are also Christian,
Yeah.
from what I understand.
Yes.
But you went out, you pursued whatever made sense to you. So there was never okay, the family follows this faith, and therefore when you start questioning, you have to kind of dismantle certain things before you can figure out what it is that works for you.
So you didn't have, in a way, you didn't have to unlearn. He almost gave you a fresh step, like find out for yourself.
Yeah. So literally, I pull from what makes sense to me across the board.
But he did tell you there's a certain way to be. There's evil and there's good. Like there's consequence. He taught you there's consequences for whatever.
So yes.
Because
it's about how do you live your life.
Because he told you about that book Choices.
As a principled human being.
That choices
Right?
things
Yeah.
is the most. That's holy in itself.
Yeah.
Dude, there's choices. You make this choice. You got to deal with these. Karmic. I mean, it's all the same thing. We living in our karma or not, up to what you think. But every choice you make is like there's a ripple effect in life.
Yeah. Also, I always used to say, like the Ten Commandments, yes, they're cloaked in Christianity, but that's just being human.
There's normal,
Like-
universal laws.
Yeah, it's as a human being, you know.
Yeah.
If you want to live in harmony with your neighbor,
Yes.
coveting your neighbor's wife will create problems,
Yes.
right? And you won't live in harmony. Like
Yes. Yes.
it's just a human being
Stealing, this, that, the basic principles. Yeah.
So I mean, so that's the foundation I came from, and so because of that, somebody was asking me recently about even how I define it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't even feel especially now at the age I am, like I don't need to tell you or define what it looks like or what it feels like. Like,
because can a word even explain
Yeah.
what it is?
because
what word
I'm
can
not
sum it all?
I'm not 100% sure as it is. I don't know exactly what it looks like, but like I'll say, hey, the universe, they say Jah shall provide, right? Like the universe does what the universe does. I believe that going back to kind of reflecting on, for example, like injuries and that sort of stuff, or even on the death of my mother, all right? I'm just like, okay, I live by, I am where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to be doing, good or bad, right? And I mean, I've talked about this often, but I found there's a quote. There was a round table of actors.
Yes.
And
I love those, eh?
and Tom Hanks, and I only saw a clip.
Yeah.
And like was Tom Hanks, Robert De Niro, a couple of other guys, and Tom Hanks was like, and I'm paraphrasing, but the main thing that he learned is like, when times are bad, is always to remember this too shall pass. And when times are good, is always to remember this too shall pass.
Yeah.
I mean,
So non-attachment.
yeah, and if you read, like I've read Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, John Key, Mind Power. I just finished reading. It's not. There's the Tibetan Book of Dying, but there's a master who wrote the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. I can't remember his name, and it's all about not getting attached to, especially ego attached to kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
So like when things are really good, that doesn't mean you're the greatest person on the planet,
bro.
right? And when things are bad, that doesn't mean you're the worst person on the planet. And it's just so. I mean, I always say I live by the one foot in front of the other. What's it? Theory or practice?
Yeah.
Like, especially when things are tough.
Yeah.
I put my head down and I just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
And eventually I'll come out, like I'll look up and it's like, oh. And then I'm looking down.
It's crazy, man, because we can be so attached and that just sets us up for hectic downs. And well, Confucius said when he heard above the clouds, remember where feet are planted. When I first heard that, I'm like, what? I'm like, oh shit. When it finally dawned on me, I'm like, okay, we can dream of all these things. We can live and like up and down, but always stay grounded. And I also love those African proverbs because some of those things is pretty down
absolutely.
They're so grounded. There's something so beautiful about being African, especially now.
So messing up my leg, it was tough. Like I remember one of my closest friends walking into my room at night, and I'm sitting on the edge of my bed in res with my spikes on.
Yo.
And I'm crying because the muscle in the front which pulls your foot up.
Yes.
Right. So I can't remember what they call it, but the calf pushes down.
Yeah.
That muscle pulls up. I didn't have that muscle. So a couple of years later, I had muscle transfers. So I now have movement in it. But for the 2 years after it happened, I used to wear prosthetic support to keep my foot at 90 degrees because I had my foot hung. So I couldn't drive. So I used to walk, like that. So I had a prosthetic support that went into my shoe.
Okay.
So it kept my foot at a 90 degrees, which meant at least I can move. Like, I mean, my gait was a little off, but I could drive. I mean, I still drive with my full leg.
Yeah.
Like I'll do that as opposed to just that. But that moment, I remember he even came and took my spikes because I kept on asking my surgeon, will I be able to run again? And he kept on avoiding answering. And I think I was in hospital for close to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I went into theater 3 times in the first week. And he already knew from the first time that I wasn't going to be able to run again. But it was, he kept on, he was a very introverted, cool guy, but a very
tell he was going to break your heart.
Very introverted and quiet guy, so he never really said it, right? And looking at my foot and telling my foot to move and it not moving.
Sure.
That's when I learned how much we take certain things for granted.
That's right.
Because you and I are talking here, there's my hand going. I'm not thinking about these motions.
Exactly.
But now I have a body part.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it. Like I'm everything, my whole consciousness. And it's like, okay, move, Chief.
It's nothing.
And nothing.
Yeah.
And so that was difficult. And working my way out of that was difficult. And I'm sure I harbored certain things. And I've carried certain things. But I was doing, it happened in June. I went home for holidays, came back, and by December, I had a neck like that, 30 centimeter biceps because I was just doing powerlifting.
Okay, so let's rewind now. Going through the darkest part of that, And you said you had your own way of looking at spirituality and faith. What got you through that? Where did you draw your source of strength from? Were there any words of inspiration? What got you through?
I don't even.
Or were you already at that point just taking it day by day?
Yeah,
Was that naturally embedded in you?
I don't. I mean, I have people around me. I mean, my best friend growing up was raised Catholic. My wife was raised Catholic. Like, it's weird. Like, I have a bunch of Catholics around me.
Me too. I was supposed to have been a priest. Met the Pope when I was 10.
He waved at me.
Yeah. Well, I
Pope,
shook
Pope John Paul waved
second.
at me.
I shook the hand that waved at you. I thought he waved at Kojo. Carry on.
Yeah. But I watched my father. So when I think of the things that I've gone through in my life, and even when I was younger, and I watched what my father worked his way through, mine paled in comparison.
Imagine losing your partner.
So, and I mean, it was also like that. I mean, when I was in Germany, he got into a car accident, and then I think he traveled, came back, collapsed. They found that he was hemorrhaging in his brain. Running his businesses, and the family is dependent on the business with kids. And the only way I discovered, because he didn't say anything to me, and in those days, like, I used to phone home once, I used to have to ask the family, like, it was an occasion because it was so expensive, right?
Yeah.
So we wrote letters.
Yes.
And letters are like 1 month, if you're lucky, 1 month to get there, another month to come back, right? And I only found out because I phoned home, and the lady used to help at home who answered the phone. She was new, so she didn't even know me. And my Sesotho was bad now because I'd been speaking German for a couple of months. And I asked where my father is, and she says, my father's at the hospital.
You're like, what the hell? What's going on?
But she can't explain to me what's going on.
Oh.
And then I discover, then later on, my father phones and tells me this whole story, and I'm like, I want to come home. And he's like, you're better for me there, because if you come home, you're now another person to worry about. While you're there, you're a pocket money, you're living with families. Like, I don't have to worry, you're going to school.
So I don't looking at things, everything like
I don't have to
constantly.
worry. Like, I don't have to worry. Like, I still got your siblings to worry about and figure this stuff. And from what I understand, he didn't work for a good 5 months. Right? And this is looking after, 5 kids, house, businesses, everything.
Yeah.
Right? So, and that was one instance. Like, that's one event I'm talking about. So I watched my father go through multiple, and knowing of what he went through even before we were born.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think because of that, I kind of just get on with it. And it hasn't necessarily been healthy.
Yeah.
But we also come from that era. Like, that's how I was raised. That's how, it's like giving up is not an option.
On that subject, would you say that was the worst thing that you've been through? Has there been something that has been so debilitating that you were just like, I'm enough now? What is your darkest moment, and how did you get through that? I mean, so we know you got your dad as guide, but was there ever a moment where you're like,
I mean, also with hindsight, it's weird. Like, I mean, so I had a patch where I was just, and I had patches growing up where I was suicidal, right, for a long time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because of any particular incident. I used to, like, my mood used to do this. I could be like this. 3 minutes later, I'm down. But I think it wasn't tied to it wasn't tied to incidents or moments.
Hormones, thoughts.
All of that more.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I remember a friend of mine, this friend of mine I was talking about, whose father was a sprinter. The one day we were out, and then I phoned him the next day, and he was like, I wasn't sure you'd be here today. Because then I was drinking to numb it.
Mastering.
And so it's like a weekday, we're out chilling at a friend's place, and I bought like a nip.
Yeah.
And I was just guzzling this nip. And that stage I also had a gun, which belonged to a friend.
Okay.
And so I went home, and I think I was out of it in the stuff that I was saying. I was just like, I'm tired, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, yeah, no, I didn't think, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
So I guess it's those moments. And then...
This obviously happened before you said you started making peace with the passing of your mum at 30.
Yeah, man, this was, I was about, what, 22, 23. Yeah. This was after university, when I'd moved back home and I was working full time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was more how I felt in general,
yeah,
as opposed to kind of particular incidents.
Yeah.
Like I always say, I found that having intense mood swings was hard work, was tiring, and eventually I was like, my thing is to get to a hum. Consistent, it doesn't go too high, it doesn't go too low.
Yes.
Just find that consistent, and that's how I've lived my life for years now.
Well, the Eastern philosophy talked about rather be blissful and happy, the mantra Nandoham. Or that's what even the Buddha was talking about. When he got enlightenment, he ascended under the Bodhisattva tree. And he's also following him and also meditating. When he looks and he sees this guy pulling this cow in the water, then it hit him when he was watching. He was like, I realized it. You pull too tight, the string's going to snap. Too loose, there's too much slack, but just in the middle, non-attachment, essentially meaning that. Just find a space of bliss rather than happy, up and down, this and that.
And I mean, look, it's not, particularly as I'm older now, and I have kids, it's perhaps not, it's not the ideal where I am now.
Yeah.
But I guess to get to the point where I can go, okay, now certain things need work.
Yes.
I needed to get to that point first.
Yeah.
Which is the stuff I reflect on quite a bit now.
I want to talk back to that point where you're going through that. Were you in any way active or not when you were going through the depression? Because you probably find that it was a time in which the injury had occurred. So you were so used to being so active, physical, the release of the oxytocin, DHA. Now, science, I'm just speaking from a scientific point of view. There you are, because I also went through that where train, now you're not, and you're like, why am I feeling so depressed? Why am I feeling so down? You realize that only now with science that the whole time you were okay was because you were active.
Yeah.
And that
I wasn't.
And that was its own antidepressant. Now...
And I wasn't. Like
Exactly.
I moved back home after varsity, and for a couple of months I trained at a gym in town, and there weren't a lot of gyms. I wasn't running anymore, so I couldn't go to the track, and I've never been a big jogger.
Yeah.
Because it was what you had to do to warm up for the sprints. Right?
You wanted a sprint. You're missing that burst of...
But I stopped training for a while.
And then when you started training again, because you said that you started doing the weightlifting and stuff, what happened then?
So
what made you want to start exercising again?
And the weightlifting is probably what enabled me to finish my year, right? Because it happened in June, I went home from school holidays. So I wrote my exams, and then I went home school holidays, and I came back, and then immediately, for the rest of the year, which was like the 6 months for the rest of the year, I was doing 3-day splits. So I'm in the gym 3 days a week, one rest day. 3 days a week, one rest day, and intensely, and I did it right through. I would go to the library, and I remember. So I went to University of Natal, Durban, which is now UKZN.
Yes.
And we had a small gym, but it was a functional gym. You know, like those gyms.
Yeah, basics.
It's small. There's weights everywhere, but it's functional.
Yeah.
And the library used to close, I think, around 11.
Yeah.
And I'd leave the library and go to the gym. And I always remember Seal's Kiss from a Rose.
Yes.
Because Tish Mataz used to be on.
Teach.
And I think it was 5, but the radio in the gym
Teacher's blowing up on 5.
was always on that station, and it was always playing because you used your student card. So there was nobody to welcome you. Like I'd be in there alone.
Yes.
And I did that for the rest of my year. And when you talk about it, like with hindsight,
that's it.
In terms of dealing with such an injury, that's probably what helped me. And I mean, if we fast forward to, I've trained, I tried different things over the years. I'd work out and then not, and I'd go like months or even years without training. Yeah. And then about 3 years ago, I turned 50, and I was just like, do you know what? I need to slow down the breakdown of this machine. Yes. It's breaking down, but I'm at the stage where I feel like I need to slow that breakdown, and I'm not intense with it. So I'll train 3 days a week.
Just moving,
and it's not consistent. Consistent thing I do. For example, I do body tech once a week, and I like it because it's an appointment.
Yes.
It's
You're accountable.
Fixed. I'm accountable. It's not far from my house. Yeah. And I was having a conversation with my wife the other day, because I was trying to encourage her, because I signed everybody up for gym, and they don't go. But
I need to come to you guys' house. I'll have to make the trip to your crib to train you guys.
But I was saying, I need the gym. It's not even for physical. It's my mental.
Mental wellness,
like it's in dealing with, and now I carry a lot of stress. Like I've realized, I always tell people I'm the calmest person you know. But over the last couple of years, I know I carry the stress. So outwardly I'm calm. Inwardly I'm also relatively calm, but I know the points in my body that carry the stress. So I'm like, I actually need the gym, and I'll go in there and I don't answer the phone. I put on my music. There's 1 or 2 guys I greet. Yeah. Half the time it's a head nod. And I do 30 minutes cardio, and then I go on the weights for 30, 40 minutes. I take my time. I don't push the weights too hard. And it's like, it's me time.
And just that moving, how does it make you feel the whole day afterwards? Don't you have a sense of like...
Even when I come back, like even just driving home.
Here's the thing is, of course, I'm someone that studied all this because I'm also wondering why the ups, the downs, this and that. So when I got the knowledge, I was like, oh, that made so much sense. When we were young, we played soccer, basketball, this. Before I blew up on the TV and stuff, also training. Then you'd have moments where, okay, I'm on location now, and I'm here, I'm doing nothing, I'm here. Then wondering why am I feeling this way? Only when I went to really study the whole thing, and I was like, oh, this is why. And hence why I always bring that up in the conversation without you even knowing it, without a lot of people knowing it. You've been taking care of your mental, emotional wellness just by moving without you even knowing it. Hence why you'll probably be feeling down if you haven't had enough movement, getting that oxygen flowing. So,
I'm in a week where I haven't been 100%. So I've literally been, I was at casualty for 2 hours.
What happened?
Because last week I had a pain in my back, but it was a pain like I've not felt before.
Mm-hmm.
When it first came, it felt like a muscle strain, right?
Okay.
And it was like a Sunday at the market with the family. I didn't lift anything. And I hadn't trained. And then like the Monday, I hadn't trained for like 5 days.
Okay.
Like this year, I've been a bit slack, but I don't stress myself out of it. So I've been training like twice a week.
Okay.
And it just got to the point where, like, it woke me up the one night. I was up for 2 hours. I couldn't find a comfortable position. I was literally sitting up, lying down, turning, etc.
It's connected with the breathing.
And then when I breathed, it would hurt. And so I went to my chiropractor.
Yes.
And I mean, it was actually, it was funny, a little funny, because I didn't have pain.
Yes.
I didn't have pain for like 24 hours.
Yeah.
And then I make an appointment with my chiropractor, because now I have a chiropractor that I go to.
Yes, yes.
I try to go every quarter.
Mm-hmm.
He knows me.
Yes.
We have fat chats about life.
Yes, maintenance.
So I'd made an appointment. For 24 hours, I hadn't had pain.
Mm.
And I jump in the shower to get ready to go. And the pain starts while I'm in the shower. And by the time I get to him, he couldn't even touch me.
Yo.
So like he's like, lie on your back. So I explain what's happened.
Yeah.
He's like, lie on your back. I lie on my back. He checks my alignment. He pulls up my leg. And it's just hurting. He's okay, lie on your stomach. And I lie on my stomach. He's like, okay, take a deep breath. And he's trying to feel where it is.
Yes.
He's like, take a deep breath. And I can't take a deep breath because it comes with pain. So I'm scrunching, like I'm trying, but I'm scrunching up.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, I can't help you. Go to casualty.
You've got to scan this. You've got to x-ray.
So I went through that whole process. I mean, it's still ongoing, right? So I went through that whole process. Yesterday I was at a physio because they did x-rays.
And they worked out what the problem is.
Well, so in chatting to the physio,
Yeah.
basically I'm just getting older. And so it's joints and muscles,
Yeah.
stuff narrowing, etc. I live with pain because, like the neck will be hurting or the shoulder will be hurting. And it's been like that it'll be like that for months, right? And even my chiropractor was saying to me the one day, it seems like I have a high pain threshold, which is not always a good thing.
Because you're used to it and you're not seen to it when it needs to be seen to.
Because I will live with pain.
Yeah.
Constantly. Where I can't turn my neck without some kind of twinge somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And so now the next thing is I'm going to go see my GP.
Now we need maintenance, constant
because like I have a pain here.
Okay.
But the last time I had a pain here when I turned 40, I think I was 41 going on 42.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd spent 18 months running hard. Because turning 40, I was just like, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I feel like time is running out.
Yeah.
I have a young child.
Yeah.
I have 2 young children. And I just ran hard for 18 months
The
straight.
old you ghosting you, stressing you out.
18 months straight. And
nothing.
I was editing Destiny Man then.
Yeah.
The only training I was doing was I used to write the fitness pages.
Yes.
So I'd go try something out.
Ah.
But I'd literally just go try it out. Like I'll do a session of Muay Thai.
Okay.
And then write about it.
Okay.
And then I'd never go back. And I thought I was having a heart attack. And this is the time when all the guys that age, from Robert Marawa to there's a Ghanaian, he used to be on I think BBC.
Yeah.
There were just a lot of guys.
And Bob as well.
Yeah, a lot of guys who had just turned 40,
Yeah.
all having heart attacks.
Bro, it was crazy.
And so I went to my doctor, and eventually I found, like, because I've had heartburn for years.
Okay.
And severe or intense indigestion
Yes.
can create a pain in your chest here.
Yeah.
So now, like, I'm sitting with a Like I've had a pain here. I've been dealing with all these other things.
Yes.
The pain in my back is not really there anymore. I'm on, anti-inflammatory and
Yes,
all of
yes,
this stuff. But now I'm like, okay, now the last stage is the GP, because sometimes when I take a deep breath, it hurts here, right?
So now it's blood tests, it's X-rays.
So it's probably,
everything.
then it's probably more X-rays. So I was talking to one of my neighbors the other day, and we bump into each other at gym all the time.
Yeah.
And I said to her, so she's like, I think she's like a late 30s,
Yes.
a couple of years to 40. I'm like, you know what? See this gym thing? No? You come regularly. Maintain it. Because
Discipline, consistency.
Because I'm like, if you
have to.
maintain it, what's happening with me, who came back to it after many years
And jumped into it like
Um,
with guilt.
No, so that I don't do.
Yeah.
I don't do the.
You've learned now.
Yeah,
Easy
no,
now. Easy does it.
This thing taught me
Long term,
the whole no pain, no gain.
like Nipsey said, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
Not a sprint.
So
But you're a sprinter, so there's a student wanting you.
But I don't.
Sure.
I don't put pressure on myself.
That's it, bro.
Even going back to the weights, I'm not trying to push heavy weights.
Just be consistent
I'm
with
not-
the discipline.
My thing is, I'm doing stuff to be healthier. My first year, I was like, I'm not gunning for a six pack. I just want a flat stomach within a year.
Yeah.
Then I realized, the flat stomach and the six pack is going to come from food.
Everything's
And
connected.
and I don't eat badly, but I'm also not going to deny myself stuff that I enjoy. Like, I'm not going to go on a hardcore diet because
Yes.
I'm trying to get a six pack. I'm like,
Yes.
I'm trying to enjoy, this stage of my life.
Yeah.
So, it's like when you raise it, I could actually, if I took the time, I could go back and map.
Yeah.
Like there
It
was
all makes sense, right?
Like there was a stage I was doing capoeira. I did capoeira for a year,
Yeah.
and that's kind of lead up to and getting married.
Yeah.
There's a stage when I did kettlebells for a year and a half, and I was doing it with one of the guys who I think brought kettlebells into the country.
One of the Russians.
Yeah. And so I was like, it's the place that Kabelo, when he was on this when he was starting his fitness journey,
Yes.
I can't remember the guy's name, but that's where he trained.
Yeah.
And this guy it's like an hour of kettlebells.
Kettles.
Different forms, and I did that for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
I went once to do it to write about it,
Yeah.
and I clicked with it. And then I did, I think, a year and a half at Smith's with like the boxer size before before Fight Club and all these other places started.
Yes.
Um,
So you had a bit of everything.
and I did that for a year. But I'm sure if I mapped it and I went back and kind of looked at what life was or how I felt about stuff, because I come from an athletic background,
Yeah.
that I need that to function at least relatively optimally.
I mean, the thing is, when we were doing it back at school, science wasn't backing it up, saying, listen, it's been proven that certain amount of exercise reduces your stress. The more you train your muscle, the more your bone density. Now it's all backing up what some of us have been doing for the longest of time. That's why I'm so glad that I've stuck in it. And now we're trying to spread the gospel of wellness.
I mean, so I just want to add. So the thing, I was talking to the physio. And so for months I've been procrastinating because as a sprinter and sprint training, so you'll go and you do like a 2-kilometer jog, right? To warm up, and then you come and then you'll spend like 20 minutes
Intervals.
stretching.
Yeah.
Just stretching before you get to the track, right? And I don't stretch.
Yeah.
So I've been saying to myself, I even downloaded an app, but I'm not good with, this self-training at home.
Yeah.
It's not my thing. Like, I need to go to a place.
Yes.
This is what I've learned about myself. I can't just find a moment at home because I work from home as well,
Yeah, you see.
right? So I'm always home. And so I've been saying I must find like a stretching routine for myself to do at home. When I went to the physio, I'm like this all day. I live on a laptop. My work is on a laptop. Like my
Your neck's down.
yeah.
So
That's all I do, and that's what I've mainly done for years.
exactly. I met you on the laptop.
Yeah,
Like
right.
Duval's
Like
place.
you were talking
You were
about.
like, oh, hey, what's up?
So like I've always been in that position, and so she's given me, because she was like, this pain that you're experiencing, it's, what is it, unspecified, the shadow word for it, right? But it's like a pain that's not attached to something specific. Like,
Okay.
I did this, therefore that hurts. You know, it's like,
Is the body trying to align itself and
it's like
compensate?
Yeah, it's like you pick up you pick up a weight wrong, or you do an exercise with the wrong technique.
You can even pick up a pillow wrong at
Yeah.
home. That's when it normally happens. Like,
and you strain a muscle.
yeah.
But when we're talking about it, I'm like, there's nothing. Like, I can't tell you that I did this.
Yeah.
Even when I went to gym, because I went to gym Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah.
And the pains started intensely after I came back from gym. But I can tell you it had nothing to do with
Yes.
gym itself, because I trained with lighter weights,
Yeah.
with less intensity, because I haven't been going in regularly. So she said to me, it's actually your body, because you're in this position all the time.
Yes.
So she's giving me exercises. She's like, we need to gradually, because the body and your muscles go, this is our default position.
Exactly.
So when you go to gym and you try to stretch it out, the body goes, no, I don't like that.
I'm not used to it.
Yeah. So now she's giving me simple stretching exercises to do during the day,
Yeah.
during the course, like morning, evening,
Different movements to do,
yeah.
get that neck going.
just to literally stretch myself out.
Yeah.
Right? And when she explained it to me, I'm like, it makes perfect sense, because I had a sense that, which is why I've been saying, I really need to stretch more. Like, it feels like I need to
Your
stretch.
intuition's been telling you
Yeah,
what you needed to
and
do.
I haven't been listening. So what does, as I say, the universe decides? The universe will send you messages.
Yeah. If you don't listen,
if you don't listen,
it'll give you a clap.
eventually it'll be very painful.
Yeah. So exactly like what we were talking about, and I want guys to really take note of this. It's so important to get moving, but also it's so important to warm up, to stretch, to do the right movements. Don't freestyle. And right now you can even Google the right technique, but preferably if you can get to a trainer for guidance, do that, guys. Before we go down and unwind to the end of the interview, I want to talk about the moments in your life that have stood out. Because we've talked about the bad moments, or the moments where you're like, oh, how do I get through this? What about those moments when you were like, yes? We've all had those moments where you're like, I made it, or that moment of like, wow, this is amazing. There's something beyond this. This life thing.
Like, I'm not known for my over exuberance. So there are moments that are defining.
What stands out?
So my wife is the one person who could tell when I'm excited about something.
Yeah.
Because for the average person, they'll look at me and I look the same. I look the same when I'm down. I look the same when I'm excited. But I think probably the most significant was my kids.
Yeah.
And we talked about, like, we both wanted children, right? I always joke and say, I wanted children. I just didn't know if I wanted the person that came with the children, or that carried the children, right? And so having had children, I made a bunch of decisions about how I live my life on the basis of my children.
Yeah.
And the first one was leaving a job, because I was never home.
Yeah.
And I, like, the idea that I'm working for my family,
But you're not.
but
there
I
to-
never see my family, just didn't compute. And so I've spent the last decade always being there. And then discovering that sometimes always being there has its own
Downsides,
its own disadvantages, right? But I do not regret the decision.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'd say it's that, like it's having had children, and I have 2 kids. We go through our battles and our struggles, especially with my son, because he and I are so much alike. But also, I mean, also random things. Like recently, I was like, I'm publishing episode number 82 of my podcast.
Yeah.
And
Let's talk about that for a second as well.
but also, like, the podcast does not make me money. The podcast costs me money.
There's passion and there's purpose, and it's an extension of what you're here to do.
My motivation now for a lot of things is, if I've always wanted to try it, I'll go and do it, right?
Especially if you can.
Yeah. And I recognize that I have the privilege of being able to
Yeah.
do things because I want to, as opposed to because I need to. So I always...
All goes back to that book that your dad gave you guys. That
Yeah.
choice. And people underestimate the power of choice and freedom, because people always wonder what's the purpose of life? To live, to be able to live and be aware of all your decisions. Because here's the thing, I always say this: when we leave everything behind. We don't take nothing with us, but we do leave a legacy. And what do we want our legacy, our footsteps? What footsteps do we want to leave in the sand?
I mean, probably one of the most difficult moments I've had, and I only feel like I'm coming out of it, is I have had what some would consider serious financial problems for an extended period of time.
Been there, bro.
And like I'm still to a certain extent paying off debt that I accumulated in 2014. And it's tied to kind of family and my father. And then my father passed away 2016, so he left me with a debt. We had projects he had projects in Lesotho that he was trying to do, and I maxed everything out to invest in that. And then things didn't work out the way we'd both hoped.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of battling that, and then he passed away. So, and I've operated as a freelancer.
So the point is also with that moment, sorry to disturb you though, but you're losing your one parent that you knew, and the businesses like that. What is that moment like? Quickly, how did you get through that?
With
I guess you're still trying to get through it because it's not overnight.
So with my father, I mean, I think I was in my 40s, and I was kind of like, I'm grateful to have had my father for such a long period of time.
Yeah.
He was at peace.
Yeah.
I mean, he was about to turn, he was 2 months away from 82 years old.
Okay. And how did he pass?
I think something heart related.
Okay.
But he was sickly for about a year.
Okay.
So I was able to kind of deal with it in that, he was finally at peace. Like the couple of years before that had been very difficult. So he could finally kind of rest.
Okay.
The financial stuff, I mean, I'd stress. That's when I started reading Power of Now, because I was that person who stressed about kind of a month down the line, 2 months down the line.
Meanwhile, you're planting these seeds and they just...
And literally, this situation forced me to come to the present. So when COVID happened, and I always say, when COVID happened and everybody was struggling, I was mentally prepared for it. Like I answered every phone call. Yeah. And if I owe you money, you phone me, I'm not going to ignore you. I'm going to answer.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, I ain't got it now, but I owe you,
Yes.
and I'll pay you,
Yes.
right? And you get these call centers, and their line is, "Sir, it's going to affect your credit score," right? And at some stage, I was just like, this whole thing feels like a scam. This whole financial thing and credit score thing, because I now have an amazing credit score. And when they tell you that it's going to affect your credit score, it sounds like it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to do anything with your life, even when things turn around. And I woke up one day and I was like, okay, do you know what? I'm just going to plug away at these things, chip away at...
You can only do what you can do.
Yeah. I was doing the take from this credit card to pay that one, to pay that one, to pay that
Yeah.
one, to pay that loan,
Yeah.
and then this one comes back, right? And I was just like, and I was fortunate. Coming out of COVID, I got a really good client, an international client, and they gave me a year's. So they approached me and they were like, they were looking for writers to contribute to their website and in their health space. And I was going to need to go like the clinic and interview nurses and whatever. And I'm like, I'm a writer, I'm not a journalist.
Yeah.
I have a great deal of respect for journalists, but I'm not the guy.
Yeah.
It's not my personality.
Yes.
So I came back and I said, okay, how about I find you writers? And they're like, okay, cool. And because I hadn't thought it through, I said, let's do a 3-month pilot. Because I hadn't thought how I'm going to find, and it was across the continent.
Yes.
I'd started different groups to try and bring writers, designers, etc. together. I have one on LinkedIn now. Like, I tried different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
So I started a month into it. They're like, we're happy. Let's extend the contract to the end of the year.
Okay.
I've now been working with them for about coming on 4 years, right? And it's an international organization. They pay me well.
Yeah.
So I've just been plugging away at stuff.
Yeah.
And then, I had a moment recently where one of my credit cards, because I moved, so I went to the banks and I went, okay, let's move my credit card debt into a budget.
Yes.
And just have it sit there. So the bulk of the thing must sit in budget.
Yeah.
I can't access the rest of it.
Yes.
Or what I can access, it's like a couple of thousand.
Yeah.
And then I wake up one day and I realize I've paid off that budget. And I've just been chipping away at it.
Yeah.
Chipping away. So it's also those moments, every now and then.
Take a breath.
Yeah, they come up and I'm like, oh, wow. Like I went and bought myself a car towards the end of last year.
Yeah.
Bought myself a nice little Suzuki Swift. I am fortunate enough to have not gotten caught up in the labels of the this or the that or place myself under pressure. And I'm like, the fact that I could do that. Like I could walk into a place.
It's the small things. Huh?
Yeah, I could walk into a place and say, hey, listen, the one thing I'll say I was most proud of, which happened last year, at my kids' school, they started these international trips that stopped them because of COVID.
Yeah.
So they did it. There was a European trip last year, 5 countries. And the kids had been told about it. And yeah, so first they'd been told about it, but my son didn't tell me.
Mm-hmm.
My wife was away working on a project. So my son didn't tell me. Then I get a flyer. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me about this European trip? And he's like, yeah, but I figured it wouldn't be possible.
Yes.
So I'm like, no, let's go to the talk. So I'm sitting there and I'm listening to the talk, and they worked out a payment plan and all of that. And I'm like, do you know what? It's doable. And last year, my son they went to France, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, and Austria.
Yeah.
He went on a 12-day international trip yet, spending money. I mean, you got to go to Munich, which is where I was born, and I haven't been in over 30 years. And that moment afterwards, I'm like, the fact that I could do that, that for me was one of my own personal kind of proudest moments. Like the fact that I could provide my child because I believe in the power of travel.
Yes, just to open his mind, because only when you travel, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
There's so many possibilities out there.
So that for me was one of, like, I basked in my own glory because nobody else said anything. But quietly I was just like, from considering where I come from, the way things have been for like the last decade, where I've just been feeling like I'm barely making ends meet. The fact that I could go, you want to?
Yes.
No, I'll make it happen.
Yeah. And I get the feeling, bro, it's like there's nothing better. Because I always say this, you're only as happy as your saddest kid. But you also, if your kids are in that space of, wow, I mean, that lifts you up like nothing. Dude, we could carry on forever and ever. So we're going to have another conversation, either on your podcast or you're coming back here. There's so many stories to tell, and we'll never get over it in one day. But before you go, I want to talk about, and first and foremost say that I like to give the people their flowers while they're still alive. So as someone I've always looked up to, maybe you didn't even know that, but I've admired your calmness, your intellect, the way you love your family, the way that you've done our African culture, not just, I'm saying all of us in general, proud by constantly questioning and moving forward. Giving you your flowers, wishing you the best. What are your hopes and dreams for the next few years, first and foremost? 5 years ahead, what are your hopes and dreams going forward?
Well, to just kind of, to be in a space where I can continue to explore the things that I'm curious about.
Yeah.
And to continue to build a lifestyle that I feel my family deserves. And that's really it. Like, I'm not trying to, I mean, I have a business. I'm not trying to build businesses. I'm not trying to build empires.
Yes.
Like, I want to be able to do work that ensures that we have everything we need. And be able to, travel, explore, and just do random stuff that I like. And last but not least, I always ask people at the end of the show, what's the definition of a fit life for you? I'd say fit life for me is it's being active and moving somehow, and finding your fit life. So it's not necessarily looking at someone else's, but it's finding the things that work for you. And there's so much stuff out there. One of the things I'm looking to add is yoga. But there's just so much out there. So there's something for everyone. You don't have to, it doesn't mean you need to go to the gym. It doesn't need to mean you need to hit. It could mean swimming. It could mean taking regular walks in your neighborhood. Just move. It could be anything: hiking, trail running, yoga, doing a martial art just because it's interesting to learn movements, dancing. Just making that commitment to yourself to be active, and then finding your thing. Bro, tell the people where they can catch you. You got your own podcast. Give them your socials. So so my socials is always very weird. My socials, it's all at Kojo Baffoe. But I have not even a love-hate relationship with social media. I have pulled away from social media a little bit more. But my website is kojobaffoe.com. And that's kind of, it links to everything. So it links to my podcast, links to my book. Books as well, everything is out there. Links to my book. And kind of everything that's my home base. Okay, cool. And so check the website out, guys. This was so cool and so heartwarming. Each one of these conversations is so healing because it doesn't come from a place when we're young when it's like, look at me. I'm like,
this for me, like for you, is always an opportunity to learn something, to appreciate. I always leave these conversations with like, life ain't so bad. And from me to you, God bless.
Thanks, my brother.
Universal bliss. Continue. Guys, if there's anything that you want to do with your life, go out and do it. But please keep moving. Appreciate every day. Attitude of gratitude. But keep reaching for the stars. From me, Kaz, Kojo, we out. Peace.